Musicals are kind of weird, aren't they? Don't get me wrong, I love them. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. But telling any story with singing is a little weird, right? Although some of those stories are weirder than others. Now let me be clear, this is not about weird musicals. This is about existing stories that have been adapted into musicals that were very odd choices for the job. Think the Battleship movie, but for musicals. With that said, this is my top 5 weirdest things that have been turned into musicals. Number 5. Wicked. No, I don't hate Wicked, I actually really like it. But I get the sense that the people writing it thought to themselves, this book's based on The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz was a musical, let's make a musical out of this book. Okay, in geometry that kind of reasoning might work, but it's not always going to work in real life. It's like saying, this banana is yellow, yellow is a color, therefore my favorite color is banana, or, people thought I was funny in this thing, I'm making this video, so everyone will find this video funny. Love? You can't always do that with stories. I also think it's kind of strange that the full title of the musical is Wicked, The Untold Stories of the Witches of Oz, when it's based on a book that tells the same story. But are they the same story? Not really. I mean, they have all the same characters, it's basically the same plot, but Wicked took a lot of liberties into transferring from a surreal and dark book into a largely lighthearted musical. And by took liberties, I mean cut out a lot of stupid weird stuff like the random road trip they take for no reason. Let's compare the two. Cross a man and you struggle, one of you wins, you adjust and go on or you lie there dead. Cross a woman and the universe has changed once again, for cold anger requires an eternal vigilance in all matters of sight and offense. And what do you have for this musical?
Popular. I'll help you be popular.
If the show had been closer to the feel of the book, I probably wouldn't have put it on this list, but the magical, whimsical tone of the majority of the show has earned it its spot. Number 4. Little Shop of Horrors. Okay, as much as I like this show, it's weird. The premise is this. A pathetic gardener grows a bloodthirsty, man-eating plant which is able to earn him fame and respect as long as he feeds him or it. Sounds like the premise to a low-budget 60s flick, doesn't it? Well, that's because it is. The musical is derived from a little film called The Little Shop of Horrors. Emphasis on little film. It was filmed in 2 days using leftover sets from another movie and had a budget of only $28,000. To put that into perspective, the Blair Witch Project's budget was around $25,000. With a production value and story like that, it just screams musical, doesn't it? And the style of music is a little weird too. Watch some of the original movie.
Blood? You like blood? Oh, you must be kidding.
Would you ever connect that with Motown rock music like this?
You don't know what you're messing with. You got no idea. You don't know what you're looking at when you're looking here.
Why do I think this show was made? Because the original movie is in the public domain.
Have you got a better reason?
Number 3. Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. Okay, I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but to me, Spider-Man is one of the weaker superheroes as far as story goes. It's just your typical story of an ordinary person who gets superpowers thrust upon him and just does things with them.
This has worked before, sure, but it's so overused in comic books alone as well as outside of them.
Heck, pretty much all of the Spider-Man villains have this backstory, along with the Fantastic Four, the Incredible Hulk, the Flash, and way too many others. But this show isn't just a comic book musical, because it's not just based on the comic books. It's also based on the 2002 Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, and they added elements of the Greek myth of Arachne, which I won't go into here, but basically it's one of those, and that's why giraffes have long necks myths, except for spiders. Look, just because you reference something artsy in your show does not make your show artsy. And giving yourself a pretentious title like Turn Off the Dark doesn't make you artsy either. Seriously, you're about a hero named Spider-Man. You can't expect us to take you that seriously. Another problem with the show is that if you have heard of it, it's probably because of something like this.
There has been another accident for the most expensive Broadway musical ever.
This musical had so many injuries and delays in opening that many shows have satirized it, including, oddly enough, Sesame Street.
I am a spider monster. Watch me fly to the sky.
That's not flying, you just fell on me.
This is only our 17th opening night, sir.
I know I've said a lot about this already, but I have to bring up one more thing, because the icing on the cake of weird choices for this musical is that the music was written by Bono, the lead singer of U2. What a strange combination. Oh well, moving on.
Number 2. Clue the Musical. And now we get into the storyless source materials. Clue the Musical is exactly what you're thinking it is, a musical based on the board game Clue. While it has characters in a scenario that most people are familiar with, it has zero story.
You know, because it's a board game!
There are plenty of more compelling whodunit stories, why choose one that's a board game? Having character names, a setting, and an extremely basic premise is not enough to make a story. It is kind of creative that the show involves bringing 3 audience members on stage and having them choose cards to determine the final ending. Having 216 possible endings is no small feat. But guess what? Whatever they choose is not even the real ending. A surprise twist delights the audience.
And it is a delightful plot twist. Just like the ones in Signs, War of the Worlds, Breaking Down Part 2, and Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes movie. What twist does Clue offer us? Get ready to squeal with delight. Are you ready? Are you sure? Okay, it doesn't matter what the cards say, it's always Professor Plum.
But the Professor Plum in the production is an imposter with the perpetrator Professor Plum posing as a piano player in the pit.
Try saying that 5 times fast.
Which makes the cards in their 216 endings entirely and completely pointless.
Feeling delighted?
Delighted, overjoyed, enraptured, entranced. Are we ready? Yes, good.
And number 1, Jerry Springer the Opera.
I'm gonna say that again. Jerry Springer the Opera.
And yes, it's exactly as irreverent and crude as you think it is.
Bigger than Dave Letterman, bigger than Bob Hope, and give or take a few million, bigger than the f***ing Pope.
Because of course it is. I've shown you footage of the original show, but after watching some for myself, I don't think any school-appropriate footage exists. So let's focus on the stage show, which also has its political incorrectness, which is a very kind word for it. Referencing such things as a lesbian dwarf, many things that, again, I can't share in this setting,
and of course, this scene.
It's also an enormous glorification of Jerry Springer himself, with the cast treating him like some kind of god amongst men.
Now I'm going to let you know a little secret. The video you're watching right now is an enormous retooling of the original draft of this video, which was a top 10 list.
This show is number 2 on the list, which is largely due to my not doing nearly as much research the first time around. Everything I just said about the show is exactly what I had from the first video.
But then I did some extra research into this. I didn't know the whole story when I made the first video. Now I do. And boy, are you in for a treat.
The first act of the show is basically just a musical version of an episode of the show, as you would expect. But then Jerry gets shot and, oh, how do I do this justice? Well, let me read you some of the frequently asked questions about the show on IMDb. Does this show depict Jesus Christ as having a fecal fetish? Does this show call God the fascist tyrant on high? And does this show depict Jesus Christ as a flamboyant homosexual? By now you're probably wondering, what on earth happens in this show? This, my friends, is the delightful twist we were promised in Clue. Act 2 begins in purgatory.
You know, because when you think of Jerry Springer, you instantly think of Catholic imagery of the afterlife, right?
And remember this guy?
Bigger than Bob Hope.
Guess what? He's Satan.
No, really. He's Satan.
And he tells Jerry that he has to come with him to hell to do a special show, in order to get him an apology from Jesus for his expulsion from heaven. Jerry agrees out of fear of a punishment that I can't tell you about, but let's just say it involves barbed wire. Jerry, knowing he's fighting an impossible battle, asks for a miracle and God appears. He asks Jerry to sit by his side and advise him on Earth. The angels and demons, God and Satan, all fight over Jerry until he is chained into a cage, suspended over a pit of flames, and about to die. But after a speech where he insults Satan, God, and Jesus and literally says F you to everyone there, everyone decides, okay, yeah, let's let him live.
I mean, wouldn't you?
Jerry decides he wants to stay in hell.
I mean, wouldn't you?
But he is told that he has to return to Earth. After a pseudo-hymn called Jerry Eleison, based on a real hymn, Kyrie Eleison,
you know, because this show wasn't nearly blasphemous enough.
He's returned to Earth, dying after having been shot. He gives his final thought and then he dies, where I assume he returned to hell, so I guess he got what he wanted in the end. Whoop-de-doo, boo-hoo, and all the other things I'd say if I actually cared. Bottom line, this is a weird setup with an unbelievably weird execution. And now it's time for my final thought. Huh? So that's my top 5 list, and it got me thinking. What other stories could be made into musicals? How about Star Wars The Phantom Menace the musical?
So maybe now you see the start of my dark turn. Won't you stop calling me Annie?
Or Oedipus Rex is a Disney musical. Prince of Thieves, would you believe your wife's your mom? Your life's wrecked, what you expect? This play is Greek. Ooh, what about Back to the Future the musical?
1.722 trillion foot-pounds per minute. How can we get 1.21 gigawatts?
Oh wait, they're actually gonna do that one. Awkward. Oh well, goodbye.